Hello and welcome. On my adventures in the wilds of downtown Fort Collins, I've come across many fascinating people and their stories. And along the Poudre River is no exception. Tales of feasts, people, and taming the water. Do you know their stories? Won't you come along on this short journey as we discover the Poudre River? Our story starts right here. For years, the Poudre River was a crossroads for many different Western people. The Cheyenne and Arapaho peoples and the Arapaho leader known as Chief Friday William Fitzpatrick camped and hunted bison, pronghorn, and deer along its banks. They journeyed along the river to the Arapaho Council Tree, a 100-foot cottonwood, to hold meetings under its gnarled branches. The early 1800s brought French trappers, including Antoine Janus, in pursuit of beaver pelts, and they gave her a name still used today, the Poudre River. Decades later, Camp Collins, a U.S. military post, was established in the port but was destroyed by a flood in 1864, causing a move 5 miles downstream to establish Fort Collins at present-day Linden and Willow Streets. The area's residents then set out to tame the river, providing power, water, and food for a growing city. In 1883, the first Fort Collins waterworks was built off the Overland Trail. Using wooden pipes, it brought water to Fort Collins for fighting fire, a real threat to a wooden downtown. Horses and men dug the canals and ditches that still bring water to us today. Soon the first flour mill was built, drawing river water to power it, located where Ranchway Feeds, the longest running business established in Fort Collins, now sits. Harnessing the river's power eventually led to the construction of a full-scale power plant to bring electricity to the city. Many people built their homes along the Poudre. One of the most famous early pioneers was Elizabeth Auntie Stone. Her 1860s cabin is the last structure in existence from the original fort and can be seen today at the Heritage Courtyard in Library Park. Ranchers and farmers found fertile ground along the river in Old Town, raising sheep and farming the land. Later in 1890, the sugar beet was the crop to plant. The industry took off and the sugar beet was referred to as white gold for its high-value product, sugar. For decades, the sugar beet industry, specifically Fort Collins Great Western Sugar Company, drew Germans from Russia and others to the Poudre and downtown area to farm and begin their families. Wagons filled with beets were shipped by rail, and beet pulp fed area livestock. The factory was located just north of the river at present-day New Belgium Brewery and the city's streets department. Great Western was an important part of the Fort Collins economy until it closed in 1960. Life on the frontier was hard work, but folks found ways to play. Fort Collins has always enjoyed its music, and in the late 1890s it formed the Fort Collins Band, reported to be the best band in Colorado, even performing at the dedication of Rocky Mountain National Park in 1915. Bicycles along the Poudre River were also plentiful and served as a regular pastime for both ladies and gentlemen. Of course, some playing also had a purpose. The Fort Collins Hose Team, a collection of the community's fastest runners, pulled firefighting hoses with speed to nearby fires, competed at races, and attended local parades. And eventually, in the ultimate playland, the old firehouse building on Walnut Street, along with other iconic Old Town buildings, inspired the classic look of Disneyland's Main Street, USA. By 1880, Fort Collins was a well-established community and incorporated soon after. The streets were filled with businesses, horses, and wagons. The Old Town portion of the city was oriented towards the river. Maps clearly show how they then moved to a directional grid for the layout of future Newtown. It was laid out in logical fashion with the help of Franklin Avery and timeless architecture from Montezuma Fuller. The main city intersection was located at Jefferson and Linden Streets and later moved further away from the river to present-day Mountain and College Avenues. Wagons gave way to the first cars, trolley lines, and more growth. Union Pacific Railroad had active passenger lines through town, and once in town, passengers could jump on the municipal railway. The iconic Bernie car trolleys operated throughout the 20th century, and restored Car 21 can still be ridden today. Over the years, downtown Fort Collins has grown, morphed, restored, and built anew, always with its roots in the Poudre River just to its northeast. Thank you for joining me on this journey of the working section of the Poudre River, the only wild and scenic river in Colorado.
This was our homeland a long time ago, you know. And when I come down here, it feels like home, you know.
Tesla. It's an eye chart.
I'll just write it
I really think we should have him be the...
Stop. Stop. Look at the camera. Like,
Huh?
no, if you're here, you're like, do you know their stories?
Do you know their stories?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Wink. For years, the Poudre River was a crossroads for many different Western people.